Hey, folks, and welcome to the Counter Clipping Show, number 80 for June 27th, 2022. We are drinking. I remembered to update the cards, but not the script, so we are actually drinking this, the Singleton of Glendullan. So the Singleton is not a distillery. Glendullan is the distillery. This is a brand from the owner of the distilleries. If you get the Singleton in Europe, you get the Singleton of, I forget. And if you get the Singleton in Asia, you get the Singleton of Glen Ord. Singleton of Dufftown is the European one. There are three different distilleries. It's very drinkable. It's bottled at 40%. I think it needs a little bit of water, but not very much. You can kind of tell it's got some caramel color in it, and I'm sure that it's chill filtered. And the worse snobs than myself will object to that, but it's very drinkable, if nothing else. We are clipping Balance of Powers again because I clipped it before. I guess the good news is I do know that I will get it into 2 counter trays because I did before, because that's what'll fit in the box. It's a good game. I've played it, and I shouldn't have gotten rid of it. I think it went away, and to pay it forward, it seemed like a good idea at the time. Tonight's topic is Desert Island Games, and it's got a similar motivation to the last time we talked about something like this. I'm not sure that's quite how I put it last time, but it's been quite a while since we've had this discussion, and my opinions have probably changed. We'll talk about what motivates this topic when we get into the topic. But in the meantime, please remember to like the video. If you're enjoying the stuff on the channel, please do subscribe to the channel so you can support the channel. There's a link to the Patreon that is in the video description. And I am pleased to announce that the merch store is again available. And there's some new stuff. I'm not sure anybody's going to buy the backpacks other than me, but they're kind of neat. The coffee mugs are new and I think significantly aesthetically improved. So check those out. And there are new light colored t-shirts to go along with the various dark colored t-shirts that we had before. And there's maybe 1 or 2 other neat things in there as well, assuming I haven't deleted them. So link to that is in the video description. I was rather surprised that as many people contacted me about, hey, welcome, I can't get t-shirts as they did. That was somewhat surprising. Let me push some buttons here so we can get all these social media things out. Thank you for reminding me, but the problem is I am into clipping by the time these things start. So I think we're good now. At least we remembered, and it's not an hour and a half into the show. So let's say hello to Daniel Barney, Mike Anthony, Charles Latora, Carl Crater from the Wargame Boot Camp, Mr. Fudd Pucker in balmy Grand Rapids, Matt Taylor, John C. from the sunny Philippines, Iggy Cricktal, let's see, Daniel Silverthorne, Christopher Prest, Tim Zales, Manders. This is a little clumsier to scroll through than the one on YouTube. Michael Schmaus, Tom Borman, Strelnikov is in the house, and Ken Porter, Findle 70, Vince Ree, William Aarons, Vicky Filchak, welcome to the stream. Jeff Anderson, Doug Sunseth, who is sipping on a cool Diet Pepsi, Loquitur Gaming, Brant from the Armchair Dragons, Rick Cox, Brian Gash, Vincenzo Beretta, Chet Bell, and I think Kyle Reese, William Boardman, Joe Perez. If I didn't get you, the legend himself, Fucko, is in the house. Stephen Reynolds. And now, I think, if I got Dale Brady, Fast Hines, I think Rudy Armendariz, William Bird, Nicholas Oliver, Joe Okabayashi, David Imperato, Bill Simone. Now I think I got everybody. Welcome back to the stream, everybody. And the numbers shot up just like that, which helped a lot. So remember that Super Chats are on. It's super easy for me to lose track of the chats because we got a lot of people, a lot of talk. So if you have a question or something you want to highlight, Super Chatting is a great way to do that. It also helps support the channel, which is greatly appreciated. I will talk about, before we get into, we'll talk about what's coming up on the channel in a second here. But I'll talk about what's up with Wargaming. People are going to ask me about the move in the house and all that, and I'll get to that. So we are about to, we played one of the Pacific War battle scenarios, and I think we were left unimpressed by that particular scenario. I'm trying to remember which scenario it was. Was it the I forget. So we're actually going to stop the battle scenarios. I felt like when we were playing the engagement scenarios after a while, I felt like they overstayed their welcome a little bit, and we began to feel very confined by the engagement scenarios. So that may be happening with the battle scenarios too. So we are moving to the first campaign scenario, which is going to be the Guadalcanal campaign scenario. We picked that one because it's not too big, but it's still big. And it doesn't take too long, but it'll take longer. It'll take us probably 2 sessions to play through it, which will fit in with my moving needs, because we're going to take a week off in late July, and then I may need to take a couple of weeks off to do packing and that kind of stuff. So GT Pony Rider, welcome back to the stream, as well as Mike Burnett and Abraxas Flat, whatever that symbol is called. I don't know. Maybe we don't pronounce that. I don't know. So it's all good. I do have an MMP coffee mug, which actually my wife hilariously uses because it does hold an enormous quantity of coffee. So I look forward to not having to play in this stifling attic today. And it's not super hot outside. Now, nor is it that hot up here, but I'm still sweating like fucking sea biscuit. So anyway, OCS, we're basically, after this week, we're basically on OCS hiatus until basically September. There might be a week in there in which we can play, but that is the fella whose house we play at is going to be out of town for quite a while. So we are not going to be able to play OCS for a while. So this works out timing wise for me. So, fingers crossed, hopefully nothing goes crazy or anything like that. But our expected closing date is July 27th. Expected take possession date is July 30th. And expected move date is August 5th. Meaning Friday, Saturday, Sunday, pretty much. So, and it'll take us months to get everything settled, right? So I've begun. I had a lot of games packed up in boxes already. I started repacking them in a more organized way over the weekend. And right outside, you can't really see it, but right outside that door, there are 25 boxes of Wargames. Not RPGs, not weird games, but Wargames. And not counting ASL, I think there's going to be another 10 boxes of Wargames in this room. And offhand, I think ASL is going to be another 10 boxes. I am not going to WBC. That is not, it is just the timing is simply not feasible for me this turn. So I was looking forward to going. Maybe we'll go next year, but I'll actually be closer to it next year, if that makes any sense. I'm not 100% sure that's true, but it's not impossible. We'll be further east than we are now. Let me put it that way. So I am going to, do my best to get the game room in the new place, and there is a game room, and I got a video to show you about it. But I'll do my best to get that sorted out as quickly as possible. It's going to be kind of a 2-room thing with the office / filming area / game room. So it ought to work out pretty well. 6 Actual and the Duck Overlord, welcome back to the stream. We are probably going to do the pod thing because this place is so small. There's no place for us to stage. So we are going to have to get a pod or pod-like thing to get that to work in Dave 1013 and the One True Phlegm. Welcome, both of you. Welcome back to the stream. And Jeff Beeler, if I haven't said hello to you yet, you welcome back as well. And Scott Bell. Okay. So we're clipping the British, and we're within a half a dozen counters here of finishing the British. There's a lot of Germans, obviously. So we'll see how that goes. One of the things I like about this game is there's a good amount of naval detail, and I think that's cool. So one of the things, okay, so before we get into that, let me talk about what is coming up on the channel. Very exciting. I'm doing my best to kind of stack content up right now, so that if I have to take a week off of actual filming, that there's still channel content. So 12 pods, holy cow, that is crazy. That is a lot. I hope we won't need two, because if we need two, it's going to increase the cost by a couple $100, and I'd rather not, right? I'd rather spend that money on needed repairs. We did the inspection last weekend, and they didn't find anything major. It's all relatively nickel and dime stuff. There is some electrical stuff, some half-assed electrical junctions that we're going to need to put in boxes. I got an electrical buddy to help me with that. There's some mold in the attic of all places. No mold in the basement, but there's mold in the attic. We're going to have that dealt with. That's probably going to cost a few $100. I mean, it's basically a guy goes up there with a chemical thing and sprays it and walks out the door. So it won't take all that long. The official estimates of the repairs that are needed don't amount to that much money, and not all of them are extremely high priority either. The mold, the electrical, and the insulation problem are the high priority ones. So we don't have that much stuff except for games. Okay, to be blunt, I'm going to have probably, it's looking like about 45 boxes of Wargames. It's probably going to be about 20 to 25 boxes of RPGs, and it's probably going to be about 10 or 15 boxes of books that aren't RPGs or Wargames or something like that. That's kind of a lot. We're really not moving that much furniture because this house is super tiny. So we might be able to get it all in one 16-foot pod. And we're not going with the pods. We're going with a local competitor who's given us a better deal, a better service at a better price. Let me put it that way. And I remember Callendale's travails when he had moved, and whoever he was moving him screwed him over on the transportation. So that was bad news. Okay, so but that wasn't pods that screwed over Enrico. So I did reach out to him just to verify that. So anyway, what's motivating the Desert Island Games question, right? So I'm going to do my best to get a functioning game room happening relatively quickly, right? And office, but those are kind of two sides of the same coin. And in the meantime, I'm just going to use one of the spare bedrooms as an impromptu office, and that'll work fine. There is an actual office in the house, and which I guess could be considered an extra bedroom, except there's no closet. But I've decided to let my wife have that, and it's really very nice. I will use one of the extra bedrooms until I can get the office, which is in the basement, taken care of, which will probably also require me to run Ethernet cable, which is not that big of a deal. I can do that. I think I can do that depending on where the router is. So we will see. I don't have as many books as I used to, but I got a lot of games. It's fair to say I've got 500 plus games. That's not really how I count it, but if you count the ASL stuff, I've got. I mean, that takes up as much space as 60 games. So, it is a big space hog. So what's motivating the question here, and we've kind of been through this before, is what games do I put in the special box or two that I want to not wait to set up, that I want to be able to run right away in the new place. And while that list is not that big, I mean, certainly some of those games are on the shelf right here. I will have space to set up larger games. We're losing focus here. Why are we losing focus, camera? We will have space to set up larger games, which will be great. But larger games, need to stay set up, and I also have to worry. You'll see it when I show you the video. I also have to worry about putting a door up to keep the cats out of it. And the smaller space, which already has a door, is just not big enough to have meaningful gaming happening in there that's like bigger than one map. So the whole point is to be able to play bigger games, because I like bigger games. and to keep them set up for a lengthy period of time. So we're going to have to build a door frame to make that happen, but that is a doable thing. I'm confident that we can do that. So let me show you the video before we get any farther into this. So this is just the what's going to be the game room. Okay, so we're in the basement. This is the doorway. The framing is low in places because of ductwork, and it is here too, but I'd need to put a door here. This is going to be the game room. This space is about 11.5 by 18.5, which is not the perfect space. You can see it's got this kind of nook in the wall. So I think probably what happens is the walls are all framed already. So probably what happens is we put shelving along this wall and maybe along that wall, and maybe along this wall too, and that should suffice. And then this area, which is a quite small, like 8.5 by 11 room, which is currently full of trash, will end up being the office and recording studio. Okay, that didn't play as well as I thought with the weird vertical thing. So yeah, and this is something we're looking at is a newer mesh Wi-Fi. It's a significantly bigger house than we have now, so I think we need to think about some kind of extenders. You can actually get outdoor ones, which I'm considering doing for the backyard. That is not a huge trial. So 30K. I don't know what I missed the comment. I missed the comment from John Longshore. John, welcome back to the stream. Thanks for coming. One thing I couldn't find when I repacked is my copy of Red Storm, which is really unfortunate because I just got Red Storm, the Baltic Approaches set. And I was looking forward. I was considering that as a special box game. And I'm not sure where it went. Did anybody get a giveaway of Red Storm from me? I didn't think I gave it away, but maybe I'm nuts. And now it's going for premium prices, unfortunately. Unfortunately, Mike Anthony, I did look into this. One of the first things I looked into was what is the internet available in locally. Fiber is not available. Gigabit is available, but fiber is not. So this would be ideal, but unfortunately, there we are. So William Aarons, thank you so much for the support and the question. He says that he recently crossed the U.S.-Canada border with many more recently purchased war games, so many that they were over the duty-free limit. Oh, my. I have no idea what the duty-free limit would even be, but it sounds like a lot. Certainly, if I had gone to, say, Compass Expo and driven across the border afterwards, I might have run into that problem. I walked out of there with a lot of games. More so than I expected. Yeah, that space has a lot of potential, particularly if I move that wall. The space is actually 10.5 by 18.5, give or take an inch, because, it's probably not square. The house is not a new house, right? So unlikely that the walls are all square. It does have a lot of potential. We may not be able to realize all of that potential in the first year. So ASL specifically, I don't know what we're going to do. What are the brown guys? Who are those guys? These are the Italians. These are, in fact, the Italians. Let's do let's just start on the Germans. Suck it up and start on the Germans. So this was back in the days when people were complaining about the thinness of Compass counters, and I said they were full of it at the time, and I still think so. So, the 18.5 is a really good length. The 10.5 is just a little narrow. I kind of wanted to put shelves on those walls, but I won't be able to. What I can do, and you didn't see it in the video, is the wall outside that when you kind of walked in and there's that wall to the right, the wall opposite that outside in this sort of, space not getting used for anything. I'm actually probably going to put shelves up there too. So there will be plenty of shelving. It'll be a little more broken up than I would prefer, but it's not that big of a deal. And not putting shelves on those long walls will save me 2 feet of space on those long walls, which is desirable. So I've kind of used as my sort of benchmark for, mapping out the space and the tables, and which I have not made decisions on that. I'll talk about that again in a future video, I'm sure. what the table solution looks like. And, my wife is all for me buying a fancy game table. But at the same time, I'd like to have a fancy game table for non-war games upstairs. And that would be higher priority than a fancy game table in the wargaming space, where I can just as easily work with folding tables or IKEA tables or whatever. So the question is, what are the games that go with me? Desert Island Games was something that fit on the thumbnail, right? But the question is, and I guess if you are, somebody that's moving and you have to downsize, and to some extent we will be, but not really. And certainly for gaming purposes, we're not downsizing. I'm supersizing for gaming purposes. This is, I want this to be the game room of my dreams, which will not happen this year. But it's going to be still a pretty good space this year. Like Doug said, thanks, Doug, for stopping by. It does have a lot of good potential. So catch up on comments here. Tim Zales mentions the Hunters or Target for today. Those are good choices if you're limiting yourself to solitaire games. I'm not particularly limiting myself to solitaire games. Two of the sort of benchmark things, and I can make at least one of these things work with the two. So I've got these two Costco folding tables, which irritatingly are not at exactly the same height. But I'll figure out a solution to that. That's not a big deal. Plus I have several older folding tables that I can also employ. So I've got in total at least 4 and probably 7 folding tables of various sizes. Some plastic, some are the old particle board ones. So kind of I kind of came up with a list of my bigger games and worked out what I could reasonably fit in the room. Okay. And I think the one that is actually really more challenging than I had expected it to be was the Devil's Cauldron. It's a 4-map game, but it's got 3 9x12 sort of annex maps that jut out from the big map in 3 different directions. And I'm not 100% sure I can fit it width-wise on the tables that I have. I mean, I could make something work, don't get me wrong. But it's kind of an awkward footprint, especially if you're trying to size your tables closely to what Wargame map size tables are. Another one is Whiff, but Whiff is pretty easy to accommodate on whatever tables because while there is one big 4-map thing, there's a lot of footprint to World in Flames. There's one big footprint for the 2 Europe maps, the 2 Pacific maps, but you don't necessarily have to put them on the same table. You kind of want to, but you don't have to. But you're going to need a whole other table anyway for the America map and the production spiral and all the little cups to hold all the little chit pools and stuff like that. So, so somebody did suggest actually a long, narrow game, and Dak would fit the bill. And this room will fit Dak no problem. With assuming I had the right table. Der Weltkrieg Grand Campaign is I don't think anybody's going to try to play that on one contiguous map. I've seen it played, and they broke the map up into about 5 sections. That's very reasonable to do for World War I anyway. So because you never really had those fronts were to a great degree disconnected anyway. If you look at a game like Ted Racer's Great War in Europe, which is a very good game, by the way, and you see the way Ted broke the map up into, hey, there's a West Front map and an East Front map and a Balkans map and whatever else. I think there's Great War in the Near East covered the Middle Eastern stuff. But it's easy to break that up anyway. So if people are going to try Der Weltkrieg and play in the whole thing, then they are going to end up breaking up the map. I think that's pretty clear. I'm probably going to shortlist at least one of the Library of Napoleonic Battles games. That might be just be Napoleon's Last Gamble. There's more game in that box because I have both the expansions, both of which are now available again, by the way. I have both the expansions, so there's a lot of game in that box if I really want a bigger game. But I don't think I'm there with that series. I think I would much prefer to play the smaller scenarios. And in that case, any of the games in the series would do. With the possible exception of Napoleon against Russia, there's like 5 battles in there, and I think 4 of them are pretty big. So, and at least 2 of them are very big. Now, I'm not limited. I'm ASL's not making the list. ASL is going to be a disaster to move. It's going to go in like 10 or 15 boxes. It's going to be a huge headache. So although I think there's an excellent chance that there will be more ASL play where we're going than there is where we are, that's not going to materialize in the first few weeks, right? And in fact, our goal for the movers is going to be unload this pod, and if it's not like a big piece of furniture that goes in a specific place, then it just goes in the garage, and we'll figure it out wherever. Nevsky is likely to make the list. Iggy Cricktal is asking about the boxes that the C3I Collector's Editions come in. I want to say those look custom for RBM Studios. So I don't know that it's going to be possible. I mean, you could just order those boxes from RBM Studios, I'm pretty sure. I use, as you know, those document mailer boxes that you can get. You can get them pretty much any office supply store. But I tend to buy them from Amazon. And I can typically get at least 3 and usually 4, sometimes even 5 magazine-sized games in one of those boxes. Depends on the games. I mean, some of those old S&T games are actually, like Stonewall is really small, for example. So Empire of the Sun is likely to make that list. And, that's another one I didn't come across. I don't think it's in the storage unit. I think I got all the games out of the storage unit. Maybe that's not true. I think that's not true. Obviously, I'm going to have to go to the storage unit. I know there's a lot of RPG stuff in the storage unit. The stuff that's not is either Traveler or Chaosium or a small handful of other random things. So I want to get to this again at the end of the show, but I want to talk about what's coming for the week. Because like I said, I'm trying to build out content for the week. So tomorrow, Traveler Tuesday returns. Tomorrow we have Traveler, Journal of the Traveler's Aid Society, Volume 7 from Mongoose. That's part of their JTOS Kickstarter that they did a little while ago. I'm going to do the episodes individually instead of doing one giant 1-hour episode. That's ridiculous. Yes, so Brant is mentioning Sunday, July 3rd at the Gamers Armory in, where is it, Brant? In somewhere in the wilds of North Carolina, there is a Wargame Day. So if you are a Wargamer in that area, go down and represent at Gamers Armory. I probably would have forgotten about that. Apparently, Jeff Beeler, that was a big enough thing that MMP has decided to put a warning on the webpage if you've already ordered it, so people don't order it twice. So that was a thing that was happening. Also tomorrow, we have the stream with Dan. It is on Dan's channel tomorrow. That is at 7:30 Eastern Daylight Time. So I managed Wednesday. We will have a very, very, very special inside-the-box look at something very, very, very special. Dallas, the television role-playing game. Yes, indeed. I got a copy on eBay in the original shrink wrap, and it is absolutely cherry for, I think, $26. I couldn't say no at that price, even though it is, in fact, a totally ridiculous item. But I should be able to. It's an interesting historical piece, even if it is an infamously awful product. It's a Dunnigan design. We'll talk about this in the video, but and yes, I'll be playing it for laughs to some extent, but it's not like going to be a comedy video or anything like that. But we'll take a serious look at the inside, and I'll have some commentary because I've kind of looked at it already, and it's interesting, let me tell you. So Thursday we have an unboxing. This week's unboxing is Kernstown, the Blind Swords entry from Revolution Games, and series designer Herman Lettman and game designer Claude Whalen. That's one I haven't played yet. I have several of those. There was no support for this at all. So Hopsed New Zealand says that if anybody's in Wellington on the 23rd or 24th, come to the New Zealand Historical Board Wargamers Mini-Con. We are moving, Jeff, we are moving to Copley. So it's basically Akron. So we were kind of wanted that sort of southern corridor, so we'd still be kind of easy access to Columbus, because it's important, because I'll have to be down here for work a fair amount of the time. So it is somewhere near Akron. It is kind of a meme purchase. I actually have not done the spreadsheet this time. I have in the past, and I didn't do that this time. I have done much better with labeling the boxes, so I know that stuff is where it's at. Another thing that I want to, and Daniel Barney, thanks so much for the support. And let me address this in a little bit of a roundabout way, because GTS is on the list, right? The Devil's Cauldron. I think Devil's Cauldron is the easy option, because A, it's great, and B, it does kind of fit in that format footprint, and I can have an extra table for all the displays, and there's a fair amount of off-map displays in the GTS games, because you have these command displays for each of the commands. So the price is expensive. It is $249, I think, for the pre-order price, and the MSRP is going to be like $325. I'm not going to lie, that's really expensive. It's a big game. It's going to be a big, very deluxe game with a historical booklet and a bunch of maps and tons of scenarios and all that stuff. I have no doubt that it will be worthwhile if you play it once, and I will play it once, at least once, right? I might play it more than that. I'd like to play once Omaha's out. I'd like to play the whole thing. That would be awesome. I don't know, Brian Jarvis, if all of the games will use the 2.0 rules, but this will, and the first one, the Gold Gentleman's Sword, does as well. So I haven't played. I was not involved in the playtest of Utah Beach. I have talked to some of the people who are, and they think it's fantastic. It's a really good situational situation at that scale. GTS is a lot of fun to play. I think it will shine best in a multiplayer situation. So without knowing exactly how the commands break down, I would imagine that in Utah Beach, you will have 3 American players, one commanding the 101st Airborne, one commanding the 82nd Airborne, and one commanding the 4th Infantry Division that lands at Utah Beach, and probably the 90th Infantry Division as well that lands in the second wave. And then you can probably break the Germans up at least 2 and maybe as many as 4 ways. Now, you don't have to do that. I mean, you can have 2 players if you want, 1 player. But it's really cool experience to break the commands up so that each player has 1 or 2 commands, because each of those commands plays very differently. It's almost a very different game. It's almost a different game between playing in the Market Garden, for example, all of which uses the version 1 rules. I think it's 1.1 is what we played with. And the Market Garden games are different and not really compatible with the 2.0 rules. But all of the games since the Greatest Day Gold Gentleman's Sword have been the 2.0 rules. So I haven't ordered it yet, just because now is a really astonishingly bad time. But I don't expect that I will have to actually pay for it for at least a couple of years anyway. And that's another thing that, maybe consider is you probably won't have to pay for it for a couple of years. And maybe in 2024, when it comes out, or 2020, that's not information, that's a guess. 2024, 2025, when it gets printed, that $250 pre-order price will maybe seem a little less objectionable. Like I paid, I think I got a slight discount on, and I bought it direct from MMP, but I bought it at Winter Offensive. I think I got a slight discount on The Greatest Day. And I consider it to absolutely be worth the price. I think its MSRP is like $230 or $260 or something like that. It's also really expensive, but it's also massive. There's tons of content in it. There's big scenarios, small scenarios, mini map scenarios, half map scenarios, one map scenarios, 5 map scenarios, whatever you want. So it's highly scalable to whatever you want your experience to look like. And as I said, it is a lot of fun to play. The replayability is very high. You can play it twice and play 2 different commands, and you're going to have very different experiences. It really is a good system. And it plays very cleanly. After about the second day of playing in our Market Garden game, I was really never looking at the rule book after that. This is true. John Stanley, first of all, welcome back to the stream. GMT has dropped Mystery Wizard from the P500. It has actually been on there for a long time. So that it didn't make its number is, not surprising. I'm not going to make fun of Mystery Wizard. It could have been great for all I know, but it appears to have not been a good match for GMT and than the people that GMT sells to, like GMT's customers. In general, what is the wargaming community like in the new area? So I know some of the people up in Northeast Ohio that do wargames. So I anticipate minimal problem. I mean, I'll be back down here regularly enough playing with these guys, but I anticipate relatively minimal problems finding wargamers up there. Let me put it that way. So Jeffrey Westovich, I don't think this is viable actually at this scale. I think you would have ended up paying way more over 3 modules or something like that, and there's really no good way to break it up. You'd kind of have to break it up by commands. So you'd have if you did like a Utah Beach plus an 82nd and 101st Airborne module, and you put the whole thing together. This sounds okay, but then the German commands don't split that way. So you end up splitting commands over multiple products. I think that sounds super messy. I think I would rather have it in one big box, even if the one big box is really expensive and I have to save up for it, right? I am also very much looking forward to the new Great Battles of Julius Caesar Deluxe. That is, I've buzzed through those. I have very, very high expectations for that. I expect it to be outstanding. So, and it is coming pretty soon, which is great. So I believe we've answered this question, and I am unaware of any motion to go to a GTS 3. I think they're up to 2.1 for the last couple of games, so I don't anticipate that's going to be a problem. Yeah, we're not going to spend this much moving, just for moving expenses. We might be 2,000 for moving expenses. That sounds about right. So Mystery Wizard did make the cut. It did make its 500. I admit I wasn't looking at it. So I thought they said it didn't, but I could be misremembering that. John, I'm pretty confident this is that maybe you're saying something different than I think you're saying. But I mean, I remember buying shrink wrap stuff from Avalon Hill on a regular basis. So Mark McNair is in Northeast Ohio. Very good. We will have to investigate. Send me an email at ardwulfslair@gmail.com and we'll set it up. Do I think the Mighty Endeavor would be a good 4-player game? No, I don't. And I think the Mighty Endeavor is a very good game, but it's really kind of too small. You could get, think about it. It starts with the invasion of the European continent, right? And presumably on D-Day, and think about the amount of stuff that the British and the Americans have on that first couple of turns. It's pretty small. That doesn't give them a lot to work with. Now, it would work better later in the game. So there's a huge caveat here, though. If you are playing it with the Eastern expansion, then you can easily turn that into a 3 or 4 player game. But then you are not playing it in the way that was intended as a Battle for Germany type of thing. You are kind of just playing it as a big multiplayer game, which I see no problem with whatsoever. Stalingrad 42 expansion. I'm on the hook for that. I haven't seen my Stalingrad 40. Where the hell is all my stuff, man? I went through all the boxes that were up here, and there's some stuff downstairs, but not very much. Oh, dear. Yes. I'm pretty impressed with Baltic Approaches. It looks really good. So all the extra stuff from Red Storm looks really good. So clearly I have another couple of boxes of games somewhere that I don't know where it is. So, I mean, I don't think I'm surprising anybody by telling you that I think there are bottlenecks at GMT, for various reasons. I'm not going to even speculate. I'm sure there's a variety of reasons why stuff never even makes it into the quote unquote art queue, nor am I particularly concerned that that's a particularly convinced, I should say, that that's a particularly good description of what that means. Local Tour Gaming says Empire of the Sun starts shipping tomorrow. That's great, but I've already got it, so I didn't order one of those. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that pretty much all GMT stuff that I just don't know where it is. Maybe some of it's in this closet, actually. There might be a box or two in that closet. Doug says that Mystery Wizard is moving to a new publisher, which is good. I mean, some people were excited about that, and I hope that lands at a place that can make it successful. Death Valley expansion is coming. I think that's at the printer, I believe. I don't have Fall Blau, unfortunately. I have the Kharkov Battles game, which is standalone. You can play it by itself. It actually looks pretty good. But Compass is going to redo Fall Blau, so we're going to second printing of Fall Blau. So I'm not going to run it down on the secondary market. That's for sure. I'm really trying not to buy anything else. I mean, this thing came in shrink wrap that I am positive was original shrink wrap. Now that's 1980, so it's pretty late SPI. But remember that the flats didn't come shrink wrapped. They came just, I think, or at least early on, they came just banded together with those like plastic bands. Stigler is finally returned. Stigler, I had people concerned. Hey, where's Stigler? Where's he been? And they've been working him like a dog over in the Death Valley expansion, apparently. Matt Taylor played Advanced Civ over the weekend. The more the merrier in Advanced Civ. It works best with 8. I believe I think 4, you're kind of getting into the territory of you should play something different, to be honest. Ooh, Stigler's got a project of his own. Stigler, we'll have to have a talk about that when you're ready. It's all good. I've got an interview video coming this Friday, and then another interview coming next Friday, and I'm trying to line up another interview video for the following Friday. Friday is the day where we put the video that didn't fit anything else. So OSG is not shrink wrapped. I can verify that. I bought directly from OSG. That's very unusual now, but it was a lot less unusual back in 1978, right? So we got 113 people watching. We're trying to build up on Twitch, which to some extent is working. One person is watching on Twitch right now. Don't switch over to Twitch, okay? Just because you want to support me on Twitch, that would be cool. But who cares? I mean, if the whole point is to just try and increase the reach of the channel, I don't really care about that. So one of the shortlisted games is probably going to be a GTS game. And as much as I'd like it to be Devil's Cauldron, it might end up being Race for Bastogne, because Devil's Cauldron is in one of these, let me hide this comment. Devil's Cauldron is in one of these giant flat boxes, where Race for Bastogne is in a standard 3-inch multi-man bookcase box. Well, you're still, yeah, that's true. You won't see all the comments, would you? That's true. I want to get the comments working on the actual screen. I just haven't had time to fool with that, to be honest about it. So I am not eligible for Twitch subs because that is still there, but because I'm not a Twitch affiliate. And I don't know if I want to be, because if I were to become a Twitch affiliate, I would have to give Twitch like 48 or 72 hours of exclusivity. So I could only show a video, a live show on Twitch for like 40, and I could release the recording later on YouTube if I wanted. And that doesn't work with this format here, right? So I don't think that's viable. So if I'm going to become a Twitch affiliate, then I need content that's specifically for Twitch, which is likely to be video game content. I'm not going to do another tabletop gaming live stream, considering we've already got this show. We've got the Classless Characters show, which we had one, so check that out from Sunday. It's only about an hour, so it's not like a giant time commitment to watch it. Me and Pat Mullen talking, in this case, about superheroes. So I have live streamed OCS. It's terrible content. So Carl mentions this is Stigler. I'm pretty sure you're on this. You're in the getting caught in the spam filter here. They're like, yeah, fuck this guy. Mark is spam. So I'm pretty sure they're not reading any emails that they are sending you. Or that you are sending them. So this is going to be a question that I would like to explore in greater detail when I have the space to do so. Is GTS and CSS, the other Adam Starkweather system, heavily inspired by Panzer Command? They are in a lot of ways similar, but there's also a lot of differences between the two. And I think I too prefer GTS. But I don't think I've given as CSS as much of a shake as it deserves. And there are definitely things that I like better about CSS. So, it's kind of up in the air. And now Adam's talking about like an advanced CSS. And I'm curious to see what that ends up looking like. So we'll see. I have my ear to the ground on anything that Adam does in that series. I am not buying everything because I am not topically interested in all of the topics that Adam and Ross and the other people who are doing the games in that series have done games on. But I do have all the Pacific games, and I have Montelimar and Novorossiysk, and those all look good to me. So and on our Wednesday night game, which is not going away, I think there's an excellent chance that we're going to get to Montelimar, probably not next, but probably pretty soon. So I think next is going to be Last Blitzkrieg. Actually, I think that's the goal. Yeah, that sounds very interesting, actually. Second Winchester is pretty big. So I don't have GMT's Panzer. I've been tempted by GMT's Panzer, but I just don't have like the bandwidth to deal with another World War II tactical game. I just don't. It looks interesting, actually. And if I wanted a tank focused tactical game, I think that's where I point people rather than ASL, and certainly more so than Combat Commander, which just has a kind of let's say, an unsatisfying armor rule, shall we say. And I say rule and not rules. But I think if that's what you're looking for in World War II Tactical, I think Panzer is kind of, and you want it to be pretty detailed, I think Panzer's the way to go. But there is also like a basic game in Panzer, from what I understand, that is pretty easy to play. So Panzer and MBT versus MBT is really a question of whether you're more interested in World War II or modern. I believe it's essentially the same game system. Abraxas is absolutely right here. Twitch is a good platform to try live streaming a game. This is absolutely right. If I could find something that I felt would be good content live streamed play, I would consider this, actually. And certainly there are people who have been successful with this with with that format. Like Heavy Cardboard does that kind of thing all the time, and it works really well for him. John, thank you for so much for however whatever amount of money that is. I have no idea. But it's an occupational hazard when you tune into these things and we talk about all these great games, and this is a great game and that's a great game, and you end up spending money. I mean, don't think I've never done that. I'm trying to not at the moment, but that's only because right now I really want to be very careful with the money, because I don't have a giant pile of extra money that's going in the that's not going towards something specific like the down payment, closing costs, and all that. So I need to be very careful at what I'm spending right this minute. But I do like a lot of games, and I've been lucky enough to get a lot of games, a lot of like the sort of those grail type games that I've really wanted. I've managed to get for the most part. There's a few I haven't, but I'm cool with that. I'll eventually get it. I did set a new record picking up this thing. I think I talked about this last week. Second front. So this was expensive. On the other hand, it went on a credit card, so I'm not technically paying for it yet. So what I would like to do though is to try to be a little more focused. And I've been saying this for like a year and a half or 2 years. Try and be a little more focused and selective about games. There's probably a bunch of games that I am going to probably get rid of. That means there'll probably be a sale at some point, or a huge ass giveaway or something. I don't know. We will see how all that works out. So, Jeff Beeler, okay, so obviously I've got opinions on this, right? And there are a number of factors that make good content. One is, and an important one, and this is the one where a big slow war game usually breaks, is pacing, right? I mean, we did OCS live, and it was terrible content because it just doesn't move fast enough. Now, on the other hand, we've done some live streamed play of things like the Victory Game Civil War, which I think worked much better because it's my impulse, your impulse, or we roll in the dice actually. But GCACW can work very well with that, and in fact, I think GTS would move too slow. I think it doesn't feel like that when you're playing it. But I think it would move too slow. I think BCS moves too slow. If you've watched, and BCS moves very quickly, but in terms of content pacing, if I'm going to take 20 minutes to do an impulse, a one activation, right, which was really as long as it should take, that's a long time, right? And there's going to be times where you have to look at the rule book or something like that, or look at the CRT and decide what you want to do. So the kinds of war games that work well played live are those games that have a really fast tempo, and largely those aren't the kind of games I play, right? So not to say that you can't do it or there are no war games like that. There totally are, but those are easier for the audience to engage in because of the tempo. Now, there's certainly like a personality thing too, where if somebody's cracking jokes all the time and it's amusing, that can add a lot of interest to the stream too. And you might even say that that's the most important thing. But in terms of the context of what we're talking about here, I think it's difficult. Nate, from what a lot of people have done live stream content, and I've watched a lot of that content. Sometimes it's live, and sometimes it's not live, but it's basically just one continuous recording, and it plays like it plays live. The chats is a huge thing, and you don't get that with a pre-recorded video with comments, right? You folks who show up for these things, interact a ton in the chat, and I riff on that, and you guys riff on that, and you guys ask each other questions, and sometimes I'll butt in with an opinion or say, no, John Longshore, you are 100% full of shit on that. And that all is very dynamic and interactive, and generally speaking, it is it is pretty engaging. That, however, depends on host personality, because you have to get the people in the chat to make that happen, right? The person streaming on Twitch where there's 3 people in the audience, it's very hard to maintain that sort of interest level. Am I? Hold on a second here. Am I on all Navy left? Is that an accurate statement? Close to it. No, I agree with a lot of what people are saying here, as far as, like Mark McNair says, he likes the live play where he can kind of see people thinking through their moves. I agree with that, but generally speaking, the YouTube audience does not. The YouTube audience would like a faster paced experience. And enthusiasm helps too, right? Host over and above personality, enthusiasm for the topic. There have been channels where, somebody, knowledgeable guy, seems like a nice guy, very personable, but just the enthusiasm might have been there, but wasn't really showing through. And if we're talking in a monotone like this, it didn't really help. So, I mean, there's a lot of different factors, but one of the factors is just game tempo. And well, I can probably carry, say an OCS for about a half a turn, depending on the game. I can't carry it for a whole OCS turn, even in a small OCS game. So Tabletop Study says the only way a live stream of something like OCS, BCS, GTS, etc. is doable is if there's some kind of MC. Yeah, that's possible. I am aware of no one doing content like that in the wargaming space. There is certainly esports type things where you have like a play-by-play person and a color commentary person. That could be really interesting, but it would also probably involve a little more of an investment than I think the majority of wargaming channels are going to be able to swing. And certainly if they stay just wargaming channels. I think that's completely true, though. But yeah, I mean, if you watch a baseball game, yeah, you're watching the game, but you're also listening to the announcers and you're somewhat engaged in that, right? So, baseball is a sort of, a lot of people don't like baseball because they think it's too slow paced. So it's kind of the same type of thing. Now, I do think, I mean, if you've got like really proficient players at something like GCACW, you can make those activations go very quickly. That's absolutely true. And that's something that we saw in some of our live play of Battle Above the Clouds as well. So I've been thinking about sort of a hybrid, and this is not a new idea to me. It's just I haven't really done this kind of thing before. Instead of an after action report, have say an inside the action report, which is me kind of playing through a turn or an impulse or whatever it is, and then offering up 30 seconds. Okay, so here's where we are. Here's what happened in the impulse. Blah 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 blah. And then edit that into, say, a 20-minute video format in which you get a decent amount of the gameplay in. That I think you can do, but that's not a live format. That's going to be an unscripted but edited format. Yeah, I mean, this would be really pretty cool if somebody could pull this off. Certainly, we have the technical tools to do it with things like StreamYard and that. I am, by the way, right now broadcasting through StreamYard and OBS. So there is an OBS virtual camera, and then it basically counts as an extra camera, and then you assign that camera to StreamYard. It's actually pretty cool, because that way I can have things like the currently clipping and currently drinking cards up. Christopher Prest is talking about a show called Battle Lines. Was this a British thing? This sounds suspiciously like a British thing. So, Kyle Reese, I will absolutely do this just as soon as MMP decides to offer me a sponsorship in the form of prizes for said giveaways. So, I mean, it's a good idea. I'll agree with that. We will have some more giveaways in the future after the move. We have a show, this is show number 80. We're going to have show 100 probably around the end of the year. So we'll do something for that. We might do some like a new game room show too before that, if I can get that working. I will have to learn how to frame a door, which is not something I've done before. I kind of have, actually, but only on stage, as in like as a prop guy for a theater. I did mount and made a door work for high school theater one time. Brian Jarvis is talking about Curtis Bear leading a group of OCS at Winter Offensive. Oh yeah, now you could totally. I mean, so Curtis is extremely voluble fellow. I don't mean loud. I mean he's like, Curtis has a lot of personality. Okay, so he's a super entertaining, fun guy to talk to. He loves OCS. He's absolutely passionate about OCS, and that shows through in those kind of things as well. So Curtis is really good at that. That's why, a lot of times, I think at Winter Fest, I got Curtis did some voiceover for some of the stuff that we did for the big Osfront game. Abraxas says a lot of people have dead air on Twitch because people listen to it in the background. This is absolutely true. I think we're going to be done with the clipping after I finished with the Germans, but hey, I'm almost finished with the Germans. So that's some progress. I have had Grant and Alexander on the channel in the past, live, or was it Grant or Alexander? It might have been only one of them, but I've done it before. I agree, and this is I mean, it would be good content because they're great guys. And we've done this kind of thing too in the past for Third Winter and other things. So and you're going to end up seeing more of that in the future from this channel as well. I still have to get Curtis and Chip and Tony back on to have more talk about OCS. I just haven't managed to put that together schedule wise yet, because my schedule is absolutely bananas. So I don't know that we've talked enough about the whole games shortlist thing. I should probably include an OCS game on that list. If I was to do that, that game would probably be Smolensk. Maybe Baltic Gap. I love Baltic Gap. It's a fabulous game. But Smolensk is really good too. GTS, like I said, is likely to be probably the better choice is actually Operation Mercury. Either Operation Mercury or Race for Bastogne has a good mix at different sizes of scenarios. And that is kind of a key. I think that's important for games that big. My wife actually suggested, so bear in mind that the goal for the door is to keep the cats out, right? So my wife suggested one of those accordion doors. But the problem is it's not a standard door height. So whatever I do, I'd have to cut it down. And I'm a little concerned that if I have like an accordion door, that the cats are just going to slip under it, which will be a problem. So thank you, David Imperato. I was very happy with the results of that interview as well. And it helped that I wasn't, so I've got an interview coming up with Austin from the Robotech reconstruction team. And, it looks like a neat game, but I don't have the background in that to really, I think, ask the best questions, where I have the background for OCS to ask better questions, right? So certainly, yeah, exactly. So I gotta figure out how that happens. Now, some of those things go on a track, and I could put the track on the bottom and have the cut side on the top. So that's an option that will be looked at. I am not going to solve that tonight, but it is a possibility for something like that. My wife suggested one of those hanging barn door type doors that go on the rail, but I'm not convinced. Again, the problem is going to be finding a door that's short like that, and I'm not sure that's going to work. I think I would rather just have a hinged door. So, whoops, we clipped that upside down. Roads to Gettysburg 2 is an excellent choice. There is a special box of I think my choice on that is actually going to be Stonewall Jackson's Way, though. Just because it's kind of ready to go, and I've played less of it than I've played Roads to Gettysburg 2. But there is a huge selection of scenarios in there. In either one. Vince C., thanks for stopping by. Tabletop's Edge, Doug, thanks very much. Please do shoot me an email. We got to talk about Winterfest as well, but that's a ways off, so we don't really need to talk about it for at least a couple of months. So, yeah, shoot me an email. You've got my email address. Cats are not going to be put off by a beaded curtain. And if it was just going to be a room where people go to smoke weed, then the beaded curtain would be ideal. Unfortunately, I need to keep cats out. So I think I'm missing something from Mr. Jarvis. Oh, yeah, that was a while ago. That was when Third Winter was on, still on their pre-order program. So it was probably 2 years ago. But if you do search for Ardwulf and Third Winter, it should come up. So. So the basement, I remembered the basement being a little more sprawling than it is, since we went back there over the weekend. It's not that, I mean, it's big enough, right? Some of it is kind of partitioned off with masonry walls, and some of it's kind of partitioned off with framed walls. The framed walls I can make adjustments to. The masonry walls, not so much, for obvious reasons. I'm gonna, I'm gonna probably need to move one of those walls, I think, in the long term, because then I can get another probably 3 to 4, somewhere between 3 and 4 feet of room in that room, and then it turns into it wouldn't be when you kind of go in that door, you're right at the bottom of the stairs there, so you really can't move that wall right there. You'd have to kind of build a landing at the bottom of the stairs with a doorway in it. So it wouldn't be like adding 3 feet and turning it into a 14 and a half by 18 and a half room. You'd kind of be getting a bit of an L shape out of that room. So that suggests to me that maybe it's not worth the time to try and make that substantial adjustment. There is wiring in that wall too, and I don't particularly want to rewire a wall. I had some ideas about how to decorate the room, and I'm probably not going to actually execute any of those ideas. But there were some interesting ideas, like doing a traveler themed room, but then you're like, I don't really want to paint the room black. That would be very dungeony and weird, and I don't want to do that. All right, we are done clipping for this evening, and we're going to be clipping this next week too, and probably the week after, frankly. Whoops. I think I'm going to be able to fit this all in 2 trays. It might get a bit tight, but I think it'll work. There's a lot of German ground units, is the thing. Like a lot. I mean, you'd expect there to be, right? And these are going into the brand new GMT trays that I just bought at Origins too. Lava lamp, not really into lava lamps and blacklight posters because I'm not really into smoking weed. But if I was, then I would buy those things. This is true. So I actually have a green screen. It's just not the actual piece of fabric is not as big as Patrick from Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials. Welcome back. One of the Desert Island games is some kind of GC ACW. That is so. And I think right now, the Civil War battle game that I would take with me would probably be Most Fearful Sacrifice. Just because it's new, I've got it. I'd like to fire it up. I will have the room to do that. It's a 2-map game that's as big as a 4-map game. So this is exactly right. So yes, and Patrick of Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials has done a lot of great GC ACW playthrough. And I do think that's a pretty, for tempo reasons, I do think GC ACW, particularly with proficient players, is fast-paced enough that it can be enjoyable for more people to watch. I mean, I can watch really slow playthrough videos of war games, and I have no problems with that at all. You put me in front of an RPG stream, very few of them are entertaining. I kind of like Glass Cannon, the Glass Cannon Network. I think they're more engaging than is the average RPG stream. Let me put it that way. Third World War would be a good choice as well. I think this is a little bigger than I want to tackle right now. I would prefer, if I was going to do that topic, I think I'd prefer to bust out Deadly Northern Lights, actually, which I'm not sure when the new one's coming. It's got to be any time. I mean, certainly sounds like it. I don't know. Maybe they hit a snag. I'm not going to buy the new printing. I have the old one. I'm fine with the old one. Screw it. There's a lot of upgrades. So Doug, I don't disagree with this, but I myself am a very annoying person. So this doesn't really I have not noticed this as a problem. So Ken X or Ken 10. I do know that there are Third World War expansions for both Manchuria and Cuba, and I think there might be a Korea versus North Korea versus South Korea thing too in the works. But I don't really have any I wouldn't call that information because none of that is new information. So, Abraxas, thank you so much. Appreciate that. No, it doesn't. It's not to say that it isn't worthy. It's that I am insufficient. I do have it, and I am insufficiently engaged with it at this time. NES stuff, my 3 boxes of NES stuff, that's 3 games, right? There's Overlord, Killing Ground, and Jaws of Victory, are all already boxed. So I don't think they're not making the list in this case. However, Normandy game in general is a good call because I love Normandy games. Honestly, I'm more likely to say the Mighty Endeavor, to be honest. It's super light, it's easy to play, it's a lot of fun. could totally see busting that out in the first couple of weeks. And that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about like till 2024, right? I got to live out of this one box of games. That would drive me absolutely nuts. I am talking about, something like the first 2 to 4 weeks or something, maybe at most. I am going to be aggressive on getting that door put up. So I have played the earlier version of Battle for Normandy. I have not played. I kind of started the campaign, but then we hit the July 12th sudden death of victory condition, so I don't consider myself as having played the whole campaign. So I think that Battle for Normandy is a very good game. I think I have some reservations with it. I have reservations because of the lack of isolation rules. I think it's a bit of a problem. I think I have issues with the supply system, which I'm not convinced works right. As I've said this before, I'm not convinced that it doesn't. I'm just, I haven't played with it enough to have full confidence in that supply system yet. Some of the victory conditions are, I think, kind of busted. They're kind of too easy to achieve given unspectacular but not totally incompetent German play. I think it's too easy for the Allies to hit that July 12th or June 12th sudden death of victory condition. That's easy to fix. That's a very minor problem. There's also some points of unclarity in the rules regarding the landing sequence and mandatory attacks. Now, mandatory attacks or soak-off attacks come up somewhat less than they do in a title like Anzio, but they still are in the game, and it is not a mechanic that I particularly favor. Is the mandatory attacks rule? You're not always required to do it, so it's not as annoying as I thought it was going to be, but it's still not a mechanic I like. So I think it's a good game. I might even have the new one on pre-order. I'm not sure if I do or not. I'm pretty sure I do, because I got rid of mine when the new one, before the new one came out. They put the new one on P500, which I believe has already made its number. So I think that it's a good game. It's the most playable Normandy game at that scale, right? It's a lot more playable than Gauss Atlantic Wall, which is a game I like a lot, but in terms of playability, there's an order of magnitude difference there. And frankly, I think it's both easier to play and more worth your time than The Longest Day. I don't think The Longest Day holds up very well. I know a lot of people have fond memories of it, and that's fine, but that's nostalgia talk, and I don't think it's a particularly good game when looked at in the grand scheme of what it does and what the many other Normandy games do. This is a great question, and I'm going to have to manage this very carefully, since Great Battles of Julius Caesar might hit at the exact wrong time. I will call GMT when I hear that it's about to start shipping. I've heard good things about this. I have also looked at the counters, which I do not like. That is a not especially serious criticism, but I have heard good things about Liberty Roads and the East Front, whatever the East Front one's called as well. I'm not ordering the reprints if they're games I already have, but while I have Great Battles of Julius Caesar and Caesar Conquest of Gaul, and I think all the expansions, the component quality upgrade will be huge for this new edition of Great Battles of Julius Caesar. The counters in the original printing of Great Battles of Julius Caesar are wafer thin. I mean, they're like TSWW thin counters. They're really thin. I mean, they're like, yeah, these feel really cheap. That's interestingly not something I noticed when I owned it in the 90s, but now I got a copy and I'm like, yeah, this feels a little cheap. So I have actually ordered that as well. I'll generally not replace an existing game, but if I think there's going to be a huge component upgrade, then maybe I will. Yes, CDG Solar System Volume 2 is coming out and includes, I actually didn't look at it, but I did notice that it, just from looking at the picture, I do notice that it does include Commands and Colors Napoleonics. So a lot of people don't like it's like special landing mini games in Normandy games. Okay, now it's a little different with something like Normandy 44, where there kind of is one, but it's kind of like 5 die rolls and it's over. So it's really not much of a big deal there. There is a substantial landings mini game in Battle for Normandy, and of the Normandy games that I've played with landings mini games, I think it's the best landings mini game. I like the way the landings work in that game, and it's easy to treat the German defensive positions, the built up defenses, as a chip pull and just kind of randomize them. The Counterattack Playthrough series did that when he played through the Omaha scenario, and there's a decent scenario selection in the game too. I will say this: the D-Day at so I haven't played them all. I've played Peleliu and Omaha, and those are really good. I'm kind of interested in Saipan that Joe Youst has coming as well, but I don't know when that's coming exactly. Victory Roads, as John C. mentions, is the East Front. I'm looking, so I'm not like sold on this yet. Glory and Empire, battalion level Napoleonics, right? Same scale as Labatt. However, I look forward to there being a competitor to Labatt. So it's being done by like a Labatt person. So I am interested in it enough to keep an eye on it at this time. And it looks really nice. I mean, the counters are gorgeous. I am sort of interested in that Serbia 1914 game too, I got to tell you. Nemesis. I assume this is the Burma game called Nemesis. That actually looks pretty interesting. So another, I actually have it on my list of series games versus non-series games. Is BCS, and the shortlist game is likely to be Aracore, just because it's small and easy to deal with. But I think we're going to end up playing Last Blitzkrieg with the group too pretty soon. So. William Aarons, thank you so much for the support. It's really appreciated. Would my Desert Island category be skewed towards hex encounter games, or would I include a few point-to-point and area control games as well? So if that list was like 5 games, chances are pretty good they'd all be hex encounter games. If that list was, say, 15 games, you might start to see a point-to-point or an area control game or 2 slip in there. I think that's how it would break down, and I can fit about 6 2-inch boxes, 6 or 7 2-inch boxes in one of these file boxes that I'm using for Wargames. So the short list is likely to be 2 of those. Pretty sure they're all going to at that number. There might be no. I think they're all going to be hex encounter. To be completely honest, I think there's potential there, but I think the list is going to be a little too short to accommodate. That's not true. Nevsky or Almoravid actually is likely to make that 2-box short list, and that's a point-to-point map. So there's that. So I have no plans to do this, John. I have punched and ready to go, but I'm not going to be ready for it. I'll still be here on July 4th, so I won't have the space. So that's an academic question for me. Yes, will still be in Ohio. Instead of Central Ohio, I will be in Northeast Ohio. So Red Storm is kind of a mix of operational and tactical. I think it kind of straddles the difference a little bit. Operational Air War, RAF is a great operational air war game. A great operational air war game. I think the Burning Blue has a lot of potential too, but RAF is a lot more powerful because I did a video unboxing of it just a couple of weeks ago, because the Burning Blue is a 2-sided game with a lot of hidden information. you could play it double-handed, just two-handing it. I think you would be missing a ton of the experience. RAF, on the other hand, is you can play it either side solitaire, or you could play it two-handed or two players. And they're not that dissimilar in structure. I think both of them actually lean fairly heavily on John Butterfield's Battle of Britain game that he did for Spitzer back in the day, which I have and which I'd actually like to try. But it looks like the kind of the ancestor of both of those games. So I think operational error. I mean, I guess topically, you got to ask yourself, what are you really into? Cold War gone hot stuff, and if so, then I think Red Storm is your probably best bet. But if you want World War II, then I think RAF is what I would point people to. Brian Jarvis says Luftwaffe, but I think that's pretty tactical. John, are you talking about the one that was in Paper Wars not too long ago? Because I've got that. It's a Mike Resch game. It actually looks pretty good. Somebody, I think it was Just a Guard, did some video on it. And I think the video, the victory conditions sounds like they need a bit of tweaking. But then Mike Resch went and did that tweaking, and I think probably fixed the problem. So, and hey, I'm moving at least 2 18xx games. So they're not going to be in the short list, but there's 2 18xx games moving with me. I believe that's how I took that, John, was Nemesis, the Kim Kanger Burma game. I think it's Kim Kanger design, I believe. But it is from Legion Wargames, the one I'm thinking of. Oh, okay. Yeah, this CSL. So is that new? Because I didn't know that they had released anything in like the last year or two. Because there's a game called 1914 Galicia from Paper Wars from I think last year, which I grabbed and which just looks good. Another thing, I don't think these are making the short list, but another thing I really want to try is, and maybe we need a wall of shame or shelf of shame video, but we seem to have a lot of trouble with focus on the camera. Maybe it's because I'm not positioned square in front of the camera. That's probably what it is. I'm kind of rocking back and forth. The 1914 Michael Rush series, Twilight in the East, Offensive Outrance, and Serbian Musterbian. I would like to try those. And in particular, that Serbian front has not seen a lot of attention in wargaming. Fortunately, I have multiple games that deal with it, including the part of the Eastern Front box from Der Weltkrieg. Plus Serbian Musterbian. So I'm covered on that topic, but I would really like to try that system. Actually, I've got the expansion or update kit or whatever that was called for it anyway. I've got that too, so I should really try it. And actually, I was gonna order that magazine, the Dispatches magazine, and then they didn't have it anymore. So. I'll have to check this out. I did a buddy unboxing. It's in the slush pile somewhere of the 3 Army Group North, Army Group Center, Army Group South game from CSL, and it looked fairly decent. I mean, you're kind of getting a kind of a one map game out of it, and you're kind of paying for about a 1.5 map game, but it looked pretty decent. So. So you're going to get Canadians in Over the Rhine, which is the Goss Market Garden game, which I believe will also include the Scheldt battles as well. I think. I hope that it will, actually, because that would be awesome. Because the Scheldt is like another one of these even as World War, it's a World War II thing, and nobody wants to deal with it because Monty didn't send the Canadians any bullets. But that would be interesting. BCS. So there is a BCS market garden in the works. I think that won't deal with the shoulders, which means it won't deal with the Canadians. Not that the Canadians are on the shoulders, but if it doesn't deal with the shoulders, then the Canadians are up in the Scheldt, then up in the estuary. So, what else do they have in the pipeline? They have the Arab-Israeli war game in the pipeline. They have a Sudan 1940 game in the pipeline. That's not going to have Canadians in it. This is a really narrow question. So I'm unaware of that. I wouldn't mind seeing a BCS Sicily game, and that would include Canadians. So I got to tell you that topically, I am not interested in Case Geld in any way. Just not my thing. Most of this hypothetical stuff, I believe that to some extent the Cold War gone hot hypothetical from the late 70s or 80s, I think is a bit of a special case. I have some interest in that situation, but in terms of the more fanciful, Case Geld type of things, not really, no. And if I really wanted to do that, I would do it in World in Flames. In the incredibly unlikely event that were to arise organically in a World in Flames campaign, very unlikely. That's why there's a 1946 or 47 or whatever it is scenario starred in American Flames. And at some point, thinking of the warehouse flooding, I maybe got to get off my ass and get on this. Maybe I should order America in Flames and Patton in Flames. I'm not interested in them for the scenarios, but for the ability to have the America map and B, have the very late war stuff where you can extend the war into about 1949 or 1950, which Patton and Flames allows you to do. So, they've been there's a decent number of people who are excited about Case Geld. So I'm not poo-pooing that. I'm just saying that is not a game that I need to pay any attention to. Operation Grenade. Joe Perez is asking about Reichswald or Operation Grenade in BCS. It might. Hurtgen Forest might. That's very grindy though, and I'm not sure that's showing the game system in the best possible light. Yes, the Battle of the Scheldt, whatever it was called, the Scheldt campaign, I think, was, I don't know if it was the first Hollenspiel game, but it was really early Hollenspiel game. And it is a World War II game designed by Brian Train. And I have considered ordering it multiple times. So, and it just has never quite made the list of things I got to have. But I'm interested in the topic, and there's very little on it. Like I said, I'm hoping the Goss game, which promises to include the shoulders. So I'm kind of hoping it goes all the way up to the estuary in Antwerp in that area. TCS, and it's not going to make the short list, but TCS is a game I'd like to try at some point as well. Now, the only TCS game I have is Black Wednesday at this point. I got rid of all the other ones, which was probably a mistake. And it's one of those, like, it's in an inch and a half box, and it's a huge game. I'm going to have to come up with some kind of, and I'm hoping I'm going to have the space to do this in the new place. However, the space for counter storage, that nook that you guys saw in the wall, that may end up being the counter storage nook for a variety of games that I can't fit in the boxes. So right now, that list is A World at War and its add-on games, World in Flames, ASL, obviously, which is by far the most space-consuming, Space Empires 4X, all the Goss games, except for Hanut. Hanut, I got squeezed into the Hurtgen Forest box, but All the other ones need to be in separate trays, and that might be it. And I'm going to end up, there's no way to get any of this Europa shit back in its original box unless you use baggies, which I don't want to do. So, like for Balkan Front, I may end up using baggies. There's a reason to use baggies to ease setup because you're never going to play the weird scenarios. You're going to play the campaign. Pacific War, yes, John C is absolutely right. Pacific War is another one that I have stored outside the box, and that's so recent. And it's not here. it's at my buddy's place because we're playing my copy right now. So, Brian Jarvis says the new and improved rules for War for America just hit the Compass Games website. I'll have to check that out. Yes, and Loquitur Gaming mentions that Labatide in Mont Saint Jean is shipping from Clash of Arms. That is the Battle of Waterloo, and there's a couple different versions. Like if you have the old ones versus you need all the stuff. I'm not buying it because I don't buy Labatt. But it looks nice. It looks real nice. There's people that like all the different flavors. Some people were very aggressively saying how much they loved or greatly preferred the Marshall Enterprises rules to Labatt rather than the Clash of Arms rules. So it's a very divisive topic. So Casca 666 Longinus. Looking forward, Vakdem Ryan and Hurtgen Forest, $400 for all three. If you paid $400 for all three, that's not so bad. I think I paid $250 for Atlantic Wall and Vakdam Rhine together. My Vakdam Rhine, by the way, is missing one counter, which is annoying, and it is a German airborne unit. So that's irritating. But if it comes up, it comes up. Good question. If I'm going to take a Goss game, if a Goss game makes the short list, what's it going to be? Honestly, it's probably going to be Hanut, but Hurtgen has a pretty small footprint too, so Hurtgen would actually be a good choice. It's a good choice to learn Goss on, and Hurtgen Hanut's right in the box. So, Jeff Beeler says BCS Market Garden will have Canadian engineers. So, and Andrew Cook says there's a rules update for bayonets and tomahawks, which I've talked to some people who have played, and they seem to like it. William Aarons, that might be a bandwidth issue on the specific device. I don't know if I have an explanation for that other than that. I'm finding it very difficult to generate enthusiasm for Coruscant Pocket 2. And I have a relatively high opinion of People's Wargames as a wargame design house. I think they did some very interesting designs at the time, but I also don't necessarily. I'm just not sold on it. I don't know. I'm not saying no. I'd never buy it, but certainly topically it's interesting. But I have games that cover that topic, so I don't really need to get another one. Right? I've got. Jaws of Victory is Coruscant Cherkasy Pocket, so we're covered. And I'd be happy to play Jaws of Victory, which I still haven't punched, by the way. So that's going to be we're going to really be able, once we get everything on shelves. I mean, this is so important to me. I know this is OCD talking. Once I have everything on shelves, it's going to be so much easier to say, put a little sticky note on the ones that need to be punched or ones that need to be organized or whatever it is. And I can just kind of go through them in a systematic way. And for a while I was doing that. That's why I have, where are they? That's why I have the Post-it notes on the GCACW games. Because this tells unpunched, punch, partially punched, punched. So, and the other two, Great Takes Command and On to Richmond, I boxed up today because those aren't ones that are coming with me. So this is a great question. The answer is, I think the answer should be no, right? But that is not to say that, I don't know if I've spent $200, but I mean, I would hope that you're enthusiastic about a game that you're spending a giant pile of money on, right? I'm very happy that I managed to get another copy of Balance of Powers, by the way. I think it is a good game. I think it's one of the best games of its kind, which is, sort of the big sprawling World War I, covers the entire thing, but not as big as Der Weltkrieg, right? I've been looking at this Werewolf from Legion. This is a little too hypothetical for me as well, even though it's hypothetical post World War II. I'm just not really able to build up any enthusiasm for that topically. In general, so there's a huge thing here that we're all engaged in alternate history every time we play one of these games, right? We all know that, right? We're generating alternate history as we go. But I like to be, the instigator of the alternate history rather than the alternate history necessarily being handed to me by the game designer. I mean, I've probably spent $100 on a game I was lukewarm on. Probably. I can't think of an example. Well, this is true too. And actually, at some point soonish, I am going to need to backfill the Mongoose Traveler 2nd Edition stuff too. So I've used this metric before. I've talked about this metric before. If you are just going to put it on the shelf and it's just going to sit there, then no, I don't think you should spend that money. I think you're better off buying cocaine. But if you want to play it, if you do play, and sometimes you intend to play it, you think there's a great chance to play it, and there was a good chance that you were going to play it, but you still haven't played it. I mean, that happens. So I understand that too. But if you do play it, even if you don't necessarily play the entire game, how many hours did you put into it? How many hours did you get out of it? And then how much did you spend? And how much is your entertainment value per hour worth, right? If I get $5 an hour out of the game, I'm happy, which is why I didn't mind paying $175 for the Devil's Cauldron. That's expensive. It was a couple years ago. It's actually a pretty good price for the Devil's Cauldron, to be honest about it. But at that point, I think I may have already played it at that point. So I've gotten my entertainment value out of the Devil's Cauldron, right? And consider it more than worthwhile. Same thing with The Greatest Day, which I haven't played yet, but I will at some point. And I will assuredly at that time get my $20 or whatever it cost of value out of it, because I'll put 40 or 50 or 80 hours into that game. So GT Pony Rider asks, isn't every game purchased with intent to play? No, because there are people that buy games and never take them out of the shrink wrap. There are people who buy games knowing that they're not going to play them. There are people like that, and that's not wrong, but I mean, those are people who are collectors and not players, maybe, right? So there's an expansion version for people who already own Lini and Quatre Bras, and then there's a full version for people who don't have those or who don't want to cannibalize them for counters to do Waterloo. So for a series that positions itself as the ultimate Napoleonic tactical experience, I consider it a bit half-assed that the expectation is, and this was the only way to get the previous version of Mount St. Jean, that you were going to have to cannibalize your Lini and Quatre Bras games to play it. I think that's half-assed. I'm glad there's two different options in this case. Yes, Utah Beach is $249 for pre-order, but it's not like you're going to have to pay for it now. So yeah, exactly. Right. So I've got both Atlantic walls. Actually, I got the original one too. I'd like to fire up the original actually, but it already got boxed, so it's not making the short list. Yeah, I mean, if you're like super into it, I mean, every dollar I've ever spent on, how many 2,000 hours in OCS. I mean, so I could justify going and dropping $600 on a Case Blue. Thankfully, I don't have to do that. I'll be satisfied with my incomplete Case Blue, but Yeah, this was a great question. Which of the 12 Labatt rule sets provides the actual definitive experience? Great question. My inclination, if I bought it, I'd play with the rules in the box because that's what comes in the box. Stigler, I don't care. Just so you know. The Eagles of France series that Kyle Reese mentions, this is from Hexasim. These are really good. The challenge with this is there's only like 4 games, right? There's Austerlitz, Quatre Bras, Ligny, Waterloo, and I think that's it. And I don't even know what's coming next. They're only doing a new one every few years. And in the meantime, I have boom, right? 13 volumes. Is it 13? Something like that. 13 volumes of the Library of Napoleonic Battles. I can play, and with an average of 4 battles in each one. So a couple of them are 3, but just as many, more of them are 5. So that's what, almost 60 different battles I can play, most of which won't take me more than a long afternoon. Or I can play Labatt and again have 40 or 50 different battles to play. I just have to hunt them down. And maybe pay $500 for the copy, but you can do that. So while the Eagles of France series looks good, I really, what stopped me and what drove me to the Library of Napoleonic Battles instead was the breadth and scope of the battles I could play in it, as opposed to being limited to those 4 specific battles and whatever the next one is in the series. Those series, they're said to be really good, and I owned 2 of them at one point. So, hey, don't tell me. I didn't tell him to go back to France. They're very pretty too. The pieces are really good. They're pre-rounded counters. This is Last Eagles. They're pre-rounded counters. The maps are gorgeous. You can fit Ligny and Quatre Bras together to play them as one big game, which is, they're kind of at opposite ends of the same battlefield, and the battles are taking place at more or less the same time. So it makes sense to do that. And I've seen that done in Labatt as well, actually. A few years ago at Winterfest, somebody did that, I believe, using the regs rules, which is one of the 13 different Labatt rules sets. Library of Napoleonic Battles are brigade level, so regimental more or less, but they're pretty much brigades, regiments. Yes. I think there's some divisions in there too. It's a bit less. I don't know. It's a bit. It's like noticeably less tactical than say Labatt, right, which is battalion level. But you also get a little more operational flavor because of the much higher scale too. So, we've been talking about games, we're talking about games, right? They'll be happy about that. So, not literal desert island was the idea, but the notion that, you might be downsizing. You need to pick the games that you're going to keep. In my case, I'm going to have to pick the games that are going to go in those 1 or 2 boxes of games that I'll have easy access to for the first several weeks after the move. That is the kind of short list we're talking about. And indeed, I think we've now ironed out a bunch of targets for that, which include things like Ericor. Hurtgen Forest is going to be on the list, I think. GTS, I don't know if it's going to be Race for Bastogne or if it's going to be Operation Mercury, but it's going to be one of those 2. And that's based on the box size more than anything else, because these big flat things are going to be a pain in the ass to pack. So these things will not fit in any box that I've got. So we'll have to figure that out. They may have to go in totes, and totes are a shitty way to pack games. So I bought 30 more file boxes over the weekend, so which probably is not going to be enough. Well, if you want games about desert islands, check out Conquest of Paradise from GMT, designed by, I believe, Kevin McPartland. It's supposed to be a very good game. What do I consider the most important aspect of a good game? That is going to greatly depend on what kind of game we're talking about. So roughly speaking, I play 3 kinds of games most of the time: war games, historical war games, role-playing games, which I don't play as often as I would like, but it's on the table, and video games. For video games, what I go for is immersion. It's what kept me playing Elite Dangerous. It's what had me playing Skyrim again not that long ago. It's what keeps me in Elder Scrolls Online, although I'm not really doing anything with it right now. But it has kept me coming back on a semi-consistent basis to that game. So I am big into immersion, and I also like building shit. So I've played a lot of like a game like Conan Exiles, which is simultaneously very immersive and lets me build shit. I love that. So I've put like a lot of time. I don't know. It's probably 200 plus hours into Conan Exiles. If I'm talking about role-playing games, I am what gets called in that hobby a trad gamer now for the most part, which means I prefer a game engine that simulates rather than attempts to model narrative. I prefer to either model narrative myself or to let the narrative emerge from the player's interactions with the world and the game system. I've tried Valheim and it's okay, but I didn't. A lot of people love it. I didn't love it that much. For war games, I want. That's a great question because 90% of my 80+% of my gaming time is spent on war games and not those other kinds of games. So it's harder for me. Topical interest, right? So, games on the Arab-Israeli wars. There's a flurry of games that are by designers I like and series that I like in some cases about various Arab-Israeli wars topics that are coming out in the immediate future. And I'm just not into those topics. So topical interest is important. I tend to be drawn towards hex and counter games. I tend to be drawn toward more detailed games. But that doesn't mean I can't admire a really elegant design like BCS, which I think is a really remarkably elegant design that kind of builds a lot of real decision space into the decision space of the game. You're functioning in BCS as the historical commander of that formation that you are currently activating did. It is much harder to run BCS from that sort of satellite side, view. So, I mean, those are a few of the things. I certainly like pretty graphics and colorful counters. But 24-gallon moving bags, homemade cardboard inserts to move those DG big ass games. So I have one more of these, which is the Empires of the Middle Ages. I got rid of Storm of Steel and War Between the States. Storm of Steel I regret getting rid of. War Between the States I don't really regret getting rid of. It's a pretty badly flawed game, I think. It's not a turd. It's got some really neat ideas in it, but it really needed another year of development. John, I'm not sure what you're talking about here. Please explain. Abraxas says that war games are an interesting model, an interesting topic with pleasant components and good player rates. I mean, ideally, sure, all those things are true. Oh, right. Yeah, it's kind of a sort of semi-historical 4X game, actually. And I love 4X games. So, I mean, probably the number one thing that pulls me at a game is game format and topic, right? So if somebody did, like, there's a D-Day card game that somebody did, this, I think Decision, actually. I'm not interested in that at all. I'm not interested in the card game mechanic. So if it was a fantasy game, I might say, like the Pathfinder card game is great fun, for example. But that's kind of like playing D&D without the hassle of having to play D&D, right? So the biggest thing, that's why I own so many games about Normandy, so many games about Sicily, so many games, you know, I kind of let my interest level in the period guide my interest in the games, right? So I'm not interested enough in Napoleonic tactics to get into Lavatai, for example. But I've got a whole bunch of these sort of grand tactical games, and I've got several of the operational games as well, which I'm super into playing as soon as I get one of those to the table. And in fact, there's an excellent chance that the Habit of Victory will make the short list. This is a co-design, Kevin Zucker and Mark Herman, and this actually turns the Zucker operational system into a card-driven game. So it's super interesting looking, and if any of the very good chance this will make it, actually, thinking about it. So I've actually started plucking things off this shelf, but everything that's like from here up is going to stay till the last minute so that I have something to record in front of. I don't want to record in front of a green screen particularly. And yes, everybody has different interests. This is absolutely true. There's people who are super into Arab-Israeli wars. I'm not, and that's fine, right? I will be happy to take. I'm like reluctant to get into more wargaming topics because I have so many already that I'm already interested in. Replayability is very important. It is less important for monster games than it is for smaller games, though. Based on my idea that the calculus has to be a number of entertainment hours per dollar that you spent on the game. So if I play, let's assume hypothetically that The Greatest Day, Gold Juno and Sword, you'd never play it a second time. And it's really expensive. Let's call it a $200 game. Even though when they put it on sale, it's on sale for like $75 or $80. It's you play it once though, and you've got your money out of it, right? Based on that sort of abstract idea of dollars of entertainment per hours of entertainment per dollar spent. So in that sense, I think it's less replayability is less important, becomes less important the larger the game gets. On the other hand, there are people who come. I think size adds replayability because there's a bigger. There's more variables because there's more stuff, right? There's more units, there's more die rolls, things can go differently. It's much harder to design those things into a small footprint game, right? It's I feel like designing a monster game is in itself relatively easy, although playtesting a monster game is quite another story. So this is an interesting topic that I would want like more knowledgeable people than myself to talk about. But in many cases, the most obvious which of was Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee was trying to achieve a Napoleonic victory in the Napoleonic style at say Austerlitz or Friedland, Jena Auerstadt, of destroying the enemy army. And that didn't happen very often even for Napoleon, and it never happened in the American Civil War. The closest that occurred where an entire army on either side was destroyed was at Chickamauga, and that didn't happen thanks to George Thomas. So there is a definite evolutionary path between the kind of fighting that happened in the American Civil War backward to the kind of fighting that happened in the Napoleonic Wars and forward to the kind of fighting that happened in World War I. So, Robert E. Lee was like a member of the Napoleon Society at West Point. So it was a huge admirer of Napoleon, and that was his model, was to try to get that decisive battle, and he never managed to get it. Of course, size matters. Yeah, and if anybody tells you it doesn't, then you know what to think. So Rebel Fury is going to be a really good value buy, if nothing else. I have not ordered Rebel Fury. I'm thinking about it. Rebel Fury is going to be a good value box, assuming you like the game system. And I believe it's going to be more, hopefully if I'm misstating this, Mark will step in and correct me. I believe it's going to be more similar scale-wise to the Waterloo game than the Gettysburg game, which I think is a good move. I think to me, the Waterloo game was more interesting because it took a step back in scale and kind of made it operational, even though it was kind of the same system. And I think that Rebel Fury will do that as well. And that looks like it is going to be, assuming that works and you like that system, it is going to be a very high value box, which is something that we see a lot from GMT, which is great because I love value. Value is great. You're going to be able to get a lot of replay value out of that box. So, well, this is true for a while in the American Civil War, but not the whole time, right? So, well, the map of Conquest of Paradise is a bit abstract. As I recall, it's a tile-based map. So, Brian Hard, welcome back to the stream, and I'd be very curious to. Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah, and we're kind of exploring as we go. I think Rebel Fury is probably 2023 at this point. I'm guessing, but I think that's probably likely. I agree with Stigler on this too. In many cases, and this is one of those things where I especially in an operational game and sometimes in a tactical game too, depending on the topic, I demand some kind of command and control mechanism, right? GBOH has it, GBACW has it, Line of Battle has it, OCS has it, GOS has it, whereby there are some kind of practical limits and you don't just attack everything every turn. Attack everything every turn sucks. It's a sucky way to design a game, and that was, for a while that was the standard, right? And we've moved back past that. I don't think it's a good idea to do games that work that way anymore. It just sucks, unless there's only 8 pieces. Then maybe it's okay, but then that's your pacing mechanism, right? So, all right, we are at 10:02. So let's wrap this up in just a couple of minutes here. So I would like to thank everybody for stopping by. So don't forget that tomorrow we have Traveler Tuesday at 10 a.m. That is JTest Volume 7. Tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern, we have, which I think I don't have an interview scheduled between now and then. We have the show with Dan at Dan's channel, No Enemies Here, so check that out. Wednesday, we have the Inside the Box video of the truly magnificent Dallas the Television role-playing game. I showed my wife. She's like, why do you need that? Why did you need that? I'm like, I needed it. I needed it. It was $26. Thursday, unboxing of Kernstown, and Friday we have the first of 2, and I'm hoping 3, but I haven't lined up 3 yet, so we'll see. Interview videos over the next couple of weeks, and that ought to take us right to the precipice of me moving. Next counter clipping stream is next Monday at 8 p.m. I do not have a topic yet. I usually come up with a topic no earlier than the day before. And usually for the show with Dan, it's like 5 minutes before, if there's even a topic. And the next Classless Characters role-playing show will be July 10th. And it's a Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And we're going to talk about time and timekeeping in RPGs. So don't forget to like the video here. Leave me any comments out. If you're watching this after the fact, leave me comments. JR would probably be shot again. In fact, JR did get shot again in the revival series for A&E or whoever that was. Don't forget to support the channel. Patreon links in the video description. Thanks everybody who has super chatted tonight. It's been like a great night for super chats. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.